Good morning, friends. We're live. It's our final event of Home Seller Week, wrapping up 2 weeks of Home Seller and Home Buyer Weeks. Woo! Covered a lot of ground. I feel like I should have background music going on right here, but I'm not that fancy. It is Saturday. It is May 8th, 2021, and this is our final event. It's our casual recap of the week and everything we've learned. I do have a special guest, Jen Egbert from Mile High Modern Realty in Boulder, Colorado, who's going to join us a little bit, and we're going to just kvetch a little bit about the market and what's going on. Gosh, it's been a crazy week as we talked on a lot of topics. I'm going to recap some of those things that we've learned this week. So consider this your one-stop shop for all of the tools and tips and tricks that we've brought you this week. We started out the week on Tuesday night with my friends Haley Westoff and Stephen Natow, and them sharing their thoughts on when's the right time to list my house. And of course, all of us being experienced brokers, we dovetailed and went down a lot of different roads and a lot of different ideas while we were on the broadcast, which was great. So if you have a chance to watch that recap, do it. That was from Tuesday night, which was let's backtrack. What was it? May 4th, Tuesday, May 4th. A lot of us giving our predictions on what the summer market of 2021 would bring, what would the fall look like. And really just that, I think the big takeaway was, we know where we are now, and we'll see where we are then. It's really hard to predict right now because things are moving and shaking and changing so rapidly. And it's so dependent on the type of home you have, what neighborhood, what type of property, what price range even, that it really is important to have a really good and experienced broker who can dive into all of those metrics and really be watching those trends, because it is varying for every one of our sellers depending on what they've got and where it is. So that was a key piece that we learned on Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday night, we did five things that are most stressful about selling your home, and how to avoid them. And we had a lot of great panelists that night. We had Jamie Dunsing, one of our main inspectors from Dunsing Inspections. We had our operations manager, Leah Shields, talking about the documents and getting all of your ducks in a row and your info together, especially if you're in a condominium or a townhome association up front, and how that can sink a deal and how getting it up front is so important. And what else? And then we had a couple of our recent past clients talking about their experience, one with staging their home and how they wish that they'd done it earlier and listened to me, because the house sold very quickly after we did that, and it just kind of gave it a new life. And then also talking about the timing. I think the number one concern that I've heard from a lot of our sellers this year, and a big reason that we did this week-long event, was there's a lot of fear, and I even saw it with a client yesterday, of I'm selling my house, but I'm also buying, or I don't know where I'm going. And it's definitely a market in 2021 where you have to kind of think about this in 2 or 3 phases, right? Maybe you're going to sell your home and be able to find that new one and go right in. Perfect. That's the best situation. But what if it's the not so great situation, and you have to sell and then rent and then buy something? And that's a reality for a lot of people here. And that's been, I think, a challenge as we move through this year. And because everybody wants the perfect little happy little tied in a bow and it's perfect little gift, but it doesn't always happen that way. So anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in and that's liking and commenting and sharing. If you're watching on Instagram, when I bring on our special guest, Jen Egbert, here in a little bit. Hi, Jen, by the way. I see you there. Well, I don't see you, but I know that you're there. When we split the screen, it might be weird on Instagram. So if you're watching on Instagram Live, I'm going to apologize for that in advance. The platform that we use called StreamYard, when it puts out to Instagram, for whatever reason, there's a little challenge there. Facebook will be okay. So if you're watching on Instagram Live going like, what just happened? You'll be able to hear us, but the site's going to be a little wonky. Karen is behind the scenes here too, watching for Instagram comments. So she'll let me know if you guys comment. So please chime in, let us know you're here and where you're watching from. We've had folks from here in the city of Chicago, some in the suburbs this week. And it's been nice to see a range of people, even some folks out of the market, which has been exciting. So We're going to be live probably till about 10:45 or 11 this morning Central Time, just recapping some of all of the great information that we saw this week. If you're tuning in live, be sure and hit that like or that love button for us on Facebook or YouTube, and send us a little comment. Let us know where you're viewing from. And send questions. We have gotten a couple questions this week that I'm going to get to here in a little bit. I know it's coffee with Curcio, but I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm drinking water. Actually, I guess it could be just a very big coffee. It's not. I've had a lot of that already today. So before, in a few minutes, I'm going to bring on our special guest today, Jennifer Egbert from Boulder, Colorado, one of my dear friends who is just a rock star broker, and always has the best advice and the best strategy, and is just so smart. And I always learn from her. So I figured I would bring her on so that you all can learn from her too. All of you out in non-TV land, as I like to call this. But I do want to go back to something that came up this week when we were doing our 5 tips, or I should say 5 most stressful things about selling your home. And a key piece was when we were conversing with Jamie Dunsing, who is one of our main inspectors. And especially one of the things he touched on were some of the things that he sees most often in inspections. And I thought it was a real good piece. And I'm looking down at my notes here. Especially because we see a lot, he said, we see a lot of clients where if you've been in your house 10 years, 15, 20, I think it's a good idea to get a pre-listing home inspection, because there's a lot of things for you that are probably out of sight, out of mind, right? And on one hand, do you want to know about problems? Not really. But the thing he brought up, and I just think it's so perfectly stated, is if you know it now before the sale, you're going to pay wholesale prices to fix something. If you find it out after the inspection, when you're in it, you're going to pay retail. And I thought that was just it just put everything in right perspective. And what we mean by that is, right now, if there's an issue, we can spend the time, we can help you get the right contractor, the right specialist, whoever it is, to come fix something. But when it's the buyer coming in and wanting it, let's say that job maybe costs $700. They might be heck bent on you giving them a $1,500 to $2,000 credit. And that's what we mean the difference between wholesale and retail. You might not have as much control. And so I think one of the things I've learned this week is to maybe rethink the idea of that pre-listing home inspection. And that for a lot of folks, especially if you've been in your home for a really long time, it might be a good idea. Yes, it's going to cost you $400 or $500, but if you think about it, is it worth it to maybe save some of that money down the line? I personally think it is. We've also seen times when, you get a lot of, a lot of buyers, a lot of small things can sometimes cause people to walk away if they're nervous, if they're first-time buyers, especially on a single-family home. So just something to think about. That was a key piece that we took away from our conversations this week. I want to say thank you to the folks that have just joined in and tuned in and are watching. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for liking the broadcast. If you're watching on Instagram, when I bring on our special guest soon, as I said before, unfortunately, you may see a weird split screen where you don't really see our faces, but you hear us. Little glitch in the system. If it happens, I'm so sorry, but what are you going to do? Hi, Jen, I can see you. I'll bring you on shortly. The other piece that we talked about too is we had a great conversation Thursday night. So again, go back and rewatch that podcast if you like, where I brought on one of my guests was Susan Brown, who's one of our lenders with US Bank that we work with a lot. And we were talking a lot about different types of loan products, specifically FHA and VA loans and how those differ from your typical conventional, and really just kind of a big education session on that. And one of the things that we were really talking about too was, is making sure to vet the financing of a buyer before you accept the offer. Some of our clients are in great space where they're seeing multiple offers, but the price, and the key takeaway there was, it's not always about the price. Something that you really need to look at if you're going to sign an offer is that person going to close? And a lot of times that goes back to financing and just how you feel about them as a buyer. Did they seem really nervous when they were there for a showing? Maybe you're going to take somebody that's a little bit of a lower price, but you think that they're going to get to the closing. They're going to get to the closing table more easily, more straightforwardly, and also not being a pain in your you-know-what. So that was a key takeaway on Thursday night. And I think everyone always is, price is sexy. somebody's financing terms, even the closing date, that's not sexy, but it's a key piece of it. And it may be that that's a consideration that you want to pay special attention to. So for those that are joining us right here, thanks for joining us. It's Coffee with Curcio. It's the last day of our home seller week this week. Wrapping up 2 weeks of a lot of education and special guests. And wow, it's been crazy. And I was just sitting here recapping some of the different topics that we've covered this week. You can rewatch all of these broadcasts, by the way, on my Facebook business page, which is just Scott Curcio, or sorry, facebook.com/Scott Curcio Real Estate, easy peasy. Or on my YouTube page, which if you go to, it's just YouTube/Scott Curcio, super easy duper. And you can watch all these broadcasts there by evening. And they're long. We're live for about an hour, but it's a good thing maybe to even put on and just play in the background while you're doing some other work and just listen for some of the tips. There's some really, really great tips for our home buyers and our home sellers, those that are doing both this week, that I think will help anyone out there in their real estate endeavors this year, next year, the future. And no matter where you're buying, a lot of these are they're geographically evergreen, right? You don't have to be in Chicago for them to apply. Obviously, we're a little bit more Chicago centric on some of the things we're talking about, but they are they're timely topics anywhere, So if you've just tuned in, I see a couple new folks that have tuned in and watching us. We're recapping our home seller week, and we're just chatting here. And Jen, I'm going to bring you on in a minute here. I see that you're there, but I don't see you. So there you are. Okay, great. So P.S. Thanks for everybody that's watching. Or love the show today, if you don't mind. We love to see who's there. And drop a comment in the comment section if you can. Let us know where you're watching from, and also questions. We'll be doing Q&A here for a while. I am now going to bring on my dear friend Jennifer Egbert, who is a top broker in Boulder, Colorado. And we're going to hear what's going on there. We're just going to shoot the breeze a little bit in terms of our lovely market time. Jen, you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to add you to the broadcast.
Okay.
Look at that. It's
morning. I have morning face.
Jen texted me and was like, should I change out of my pajamas? I was like, you do you.
And then I remembered I had doggy PT this morning. So the dog's at PT and I'm in the car.
Okay, well, there you go. Whatever it takes. We're very flexible here. What is going on this morning? What is new and exciting in Colorado?
Colorado is kind of the place to be. We have a lot of influx from you guys. So
we
have all of Chicago is moving, not all of Chicago, but a lot of Chicago is moving to Colorado. We're in Boulder, so we are kind of a unique, our market is not like a lot of other markets. It's funny, we're moving up into this luxury market that is not just like the bottom of luxury now. It's kind of becoming, I think a lot of CEOs and a lot of new tech billionaires and millionaires are moving to the area. We have traditional family money, as well, kind of thing that's been here. We have the university. We have a whole bunch of industries, so we're not a bedroom community. And we have about 60,000 people a day that drive into Boulder to work. So we have these, we call them the L towns right around us. So we've got Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, and then we've got these cute little kind of villages right northeast of town, and they're Bandera and Niwot. So those are the offshoots of the area. Louisville, Colorado, I think people hear a lot about in publishing. So it's always voted the #1 place to live. So that's like 7 miles away. And that's becoming as expensive as Boulder has become. So we have a growth cap in Boulder. So the county, if you're to look down on the map of Boulder, it's got a green belt around it. So the county, as much as they can, buys up as much land as they can so that it won't be developed. Interesting. So that drives that price up, right? Those prices up because we do have a growth cap. And then we've got gorgeous scenery, like the mountains right here are insane. And so, and there's so much to do. It's sunny all the time. I mean, I moved from Minnesota and stayed. It's sunny all the time. You've been here, so, and we're down 67% off of our inventory of 2020.
Wow.
So we are seeing multiple offer situations where we are hundreds of thousands of dollars we're asking.
Wow. Are you seeing appraisal issues come in with that, or are the purchases mostly cash, or is it just people have the cash? So like, oh, it's short. Here's an extra $100,000 or what have you.
They're mostly cash here. However, the rates are so low, and people who are accumulating that kind of wealth like to use other people's money anyway. I mean, when we're seeing,
Yeah.
I think there's 7-year arms for 2.5 right now. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Because people
I
will
mean,
move
right?
like every 7 to 9 years. So no, but our appraisers are smart. So what they do is they realize that our market, we have like on an average year, we have a 8 to 12% equity gain. So they understand that they've got to, we're like, as realtors, we're constantly trying to catch up with what the pricing is doing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can make a mistake, and we have price sensitive buyers. It's very interesting. So like, if you hit the nail on the head, then there are bidding wars in the $2.5 million plus price point.
Yeah.
I would say like between 2.5 and like 2 and 3. That's kind of like
Yeah.
a more walking in door price. And so it's interesting. Well, what I love is that the appraisers will actually call us and ask us questions about the properties so they can get caught up as well,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that happens. But I mean, we don't have appraisals very often.
Huh. Yeah. I think we've seen as much as like 15 to 20% of low appraisals this year because the market hasn't caught up. And it's interesting because we have one property that is going to close in a couple of weeks, but we were listed. So we were listed on the house, and the first buyer, the appraisal came in about 100,000 short. And the funny part was though, is that we did, but you know what's interesting in this question we talked, no, well, we did, but it did nothing. And we have stopped disputing and contesting appraisals because it's a waste of time. And what we found is the appraisers will never move the needle. And the worst experience was last summer. We had an appraisal that was off, and the appraiser had actually been factually inaccurate. So he was appraising a condo in a building, a high-rise building, and some buildings have deeded and owned parking, right? You have a separate tax bill. But in this neighborhood, most of the buildings do not. It's the building owns the parking, they rent it out. It is what it is. So you might have the rights to a parking space, but you still have to pay for it on a monthly rental. And so in this particular situation, the appraiser used 2 relevant sales that were the right sales to use, but he noted that those properties had that they had deeded parking spaces, and therefore, when he looked at the value, he said, well, "I'm going to deduct $10,000 per property because of that." Except it was not
added.
It just shouldn't have been there at all, right? Because they were the same. Yeah. No, meaning like because we did it, he was subtracting it from those prices so that it equalized.
Okay.
So if they did have deeded parking, that would have been the right move, but they did not. And so we went to, and in this situation, the appraiser, we went to the lender. We were like, the appraisal is factually wrong. And if those 2 things hadn't happened, we would have appraised no problem. Everything defaulted back to the appraiser. The appraiser had to be the one to change it. The appraiser refused to change it. He said, "No, I'm correct." We said, "You're not." I had statements from the listing agent and statements from the building. We were like, "No, it is not what you said." And so that kind of started turning our tide. And this year we contested a bunch of appraisals, and we had another situation where our clients who were selling had renovated a kitchen, and I don't mean just renovated, they had opened up a wall between a space, right? Like they opened up and made this galley kitchen into this big, open, beautiful space. And we had another unit, this is in a co-op building, we had another unit that had not done that. And so you had a kitchen that was probably 15 years older than ours, and the appraiser said there was no difference in value.
Did they actually go into the space?
No, and that was the funny part.
I had a guy just ask me for floor plans. I'm like, "You didn't go inside, did you?"
It was but you could tell this even looking at the photos, you could see the difference. And so we made a conscious decision that we're encouraging, like we're not gonna attack them and try and go after them anymore, because I've had one appraisal in the last 10 years that was low get adjusted. It's not worth our time. And in that time, the buyers we found lose their excitement over the property, or start rethinking it. And on day one, they're going to play ball. Day 7, they've had too much time to think, so we're not even doing it anymore because it's a waste of time. So
well, it's
that's
an
been
emotional process enough, right? And so then you've got to go
exactly.
and renegotiate a price that you already negotiated.
Well, and the
I
funny
mean,
part
that's
is,
the thing.
you know, you talk about the appraisers catching up. This is a
Yes.
situation where we've sold this house, 3 different buyers willing to pay at or above the asking price, and yet we still didn't appraise.
Oh my God.
We're still going to trade $50,000 off of our ask, you know, something like that, maybe 40.
Really?
And it's like, yeah, and it's crazy because you're like, well, the buyers are all seeing value. If 3 different people think it's
Yeah.
worth, but you as the appraiser don't, it's really crazy. So
I mean, so who's listening? Is it realtors or is it your
I've
clients?
seen everyone. We've had, oh, I just lost you. Oh, we just lost Jen. I'm sure she'll be back. I'm going to text her really quickly. So for those that have been tuning in here, we are chatting with, hang on a second. I'm just going to lost you. We're doing a little just Q&A, kind of catching up about the our home sellers week and things we've learned, and we're talking a little bit about markets and low appraisals and things we're seeing. So Jen will be back in a minute. I'm not sure what happened there, but in the interim, for those that are watching out there in internet land, drop us in questions. We're happy to do, I'm doing a Q&A with this too. So questions about selling your house, market questions, you know, whatever happens there. Jen, I'll bring you back in.
Okay.
No, I lost you there
I
for
don't
a
know
second.
what happened there. Sorry.
I was like, where'd she go?
What happened?
So we had a mix this week. It's been other, now I'm looking at your steering wheel.
I know, sorry.
It's okay.
I finally got my lip gloss cap open.
We've had a real interesting mix. We've had other brokers. We've had a lot of clients jumping in, you know, friends. It's kind of the wide range, you know. So those that are just tuning in today, thanks for joining. Hit that like button or that love button if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram Live or YouTube Live. We'll be responding to your questions and such. Just send your questions. And Jen Egbert, one of my dear friends and top broker in Boulder, Colorado, we're just sitting here catching up on what we're seeing in the market. And so anyway, we're talking low appraisals, and we've certainly seen a fair number of those this year, you know, but it sounds like it's less of an issue for you guys there than it's been for us.
It's just a different market, right? So it's like we have like this luxury buyer and seller. So a lot of the times it doesn't come into play, you know, at that price point. They're kind of looking at like, what's the value to them? Can they get in by school? You know, those kind of things. And so it is a different market for sure. I feel for like my colleagues who are in Denver. I don't work in Denver. I work expressly in Boulder County. And, you know, when they're going up against 40, 50, 60 offers and that kind of stuff. I talked to a woman who is a realtor in San Diego.
Yeah.
And she said they got like on the first day 45, it couldn't have been the first day, 45 showings, but in the first, like call it 24 hours, and they just shut it down, which I thought was brilliant, especially in those markets where you're seeing those really crazy bidding wars. They shut it down because they knew they were getting so many offers, and they really like pulled it off the MLS so that they could just focus on what had already come through. Because you are like, people are seeing like those lines out the door and that kind of thing. We're not seeing that. That's not how our market plays out. But we will be in a like there. I'm under contract on a property for $385,000 over the asking price. Wow. Zero contingencies. Zero.
Wow. Are you seeing a lot of people drop contingencies there too?
Oh yeah, if they want it, you bet.
Interesting. We've seen a little bit of that here, but you know, not as much. I mean, we're Midwest, so we're a little bit more conservative, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so we don't tend to see those crazy things, you know. And then even when we do, I had one.
Well, we're smaller than town too. You have to remember that. Like you're a whole urban place.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Like there's only so many houses. Like there may not be any more that you that you really can or want to buy. That's a good.
So. I mean, we're seeing like rents for short term. Like one just got posted on a mom's group here for $16,000 a month, And like if you're coming from the urban areas where
Yeah.
they're used to paying that, it's no big deal, right? But
Yeah.
it's like we're having that collision right now of like, I mean, I was
Outsiders versus locals kind of a thing.
well, no, because I think the locals are wealthy as well. So it's
Yeah.
more like, I mean, people who want to be in the area and in the county too. Like there's some, it gets more affordable as you leave like the city of Boulder.
Yeah.
But there's that pushback, that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, you got, things change. I've been here for 30 years. I've seen it change. It's always been an expensive place to live. Like I
Yeah.
remember my sister getting pissed about a $5 sandwich in the 90s, right? Like coming from the Midwest, where it'd be like,
Oh,
so
that's
that
funny.
kind of
You're like,
stuff.
what are you
Yeah.
talking about? Now, of course, I'm like, are there
$5
$5
sandwich.
sandwiches?
I
What?
know. Does that exist?
Buy them all.
It's like
Take it.
Wonder Bread. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh. Oh,
know but I do worry about that divide in the wealth gap is getting wide. And even Denver concerns me because their average price point as a city, right? And I think
yeah.
3 million people, their average price point is 500 and change, which is high
And
for
what
a
it is?
city.
What was it a couple of years ago? Excuse me.
3 and change, 3 and change.
Wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I mean,
aggressive.
it's super aggressive for a city, right? Because then, like, you could think of like all the demographics that make up an urban environment. We're not that at all. I mean, it is
Yeah.
not that diverse in Boulder, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
so it is, you look at like who is coming here again, it's a little, it's, I mean, I'm never moving. Like, I love it here, but the vibe is not that exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like if you're in a city, you have like art and the food is amazing here, all those kind of things. But you see your community change,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
So interesting. Yeah. I mean, we're certainly seeing that to a degree here. There's like,
Yeah,
people are getting priced out of stuff,
I know.
and I don't know
But
how
I
you.
think it'll be cool. Like that would mean like cities like St. Louis and Detroit are going to be like the cool places because all the
Well,
young people,
that's what we've seen. I mean, the Midwest has certainly
Yeah,
seen that, right? Like we've seen a lot of resurgence on our mid-tier cities, right?
yeah.
St. Louis, Cleveland, Columbus, like I mean, Milwaukee. Even you're seeing those like,
Oh
well,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know, a lot more,
Milwaukee's always been cool.
Milwaukee for or like I can get more money there or more, and now I think in a time as we continue to shift to this work from home or that it's more
Hmm.
acceptable now, it's a different, it's different play,
Yeah,
we've had
yeah.
before. So,
It's wild. Do people have questions?
I haven't gotten one of the things
Okay.
the thing I've
I'm
been
like,
hearing.
we're gonna get so cerebral.
I know,
We're
right?
gonna.
Well, but it's funny. Well, but we've had a lot of different questions during the week, and the
Okay.
thing, I don't know if you're seeing this here, but a big concern, and I think that the most nerve-wracking thing for anybody selling right now is where am I going to go?
Yep.
And what am I going to
Yep.
do when my house sells?
Yep.
And that is, I think, like the top line, uh, most like nerve-wracking thing for any seller right now. It's that like I don't have a place identified, and for a lot of our clients, they have to sell a property to buy, and so they're in that like, well, once I sell, what happens? And generally we're telling people you just got to be ready to go. Like you're gonna
Oh,
maybe
you
you're
do? See,
well,
I don't do that. I tell
well,
them you're in the driver's seat. You let them know when you're ready to move out.
but see, we don't have, well, so sometimes we can have that, right? Like in a
Okay.
perfect world, we have seen buyers this year be more flexible in
Yep.
terms of like I have a client who's doing a walkthrough actually literally right now about where she gave the seller almost like 6 or 7 weeks of occupancy post closing
Hmm.
because they didn't need to move. But 2 years ago, we wouldn't have seen that. People are like post close possession, no, but I think there's a little bit of that, like, I don't know if I
Yeah.
call it camaraderie, but people like relate to it. But if you've also got someone that's like, I gotta move, like, they're like, I'm on a time lane, and they can't change it. That's the piece. And no seller has to accept that. But if you got a really good price for your house, do you say, okay, because here too, getting a home sale contingency is darn near impossible right now,
Sure. Yeah.
which you would expect, even a home close contingency, is a doozy, you know?
Do you know what I did? Now it's occupied, but I had my townhouse, right?
Yeah,
So Scott knows, like, I bought a townhouse when I was 26. It was my first property.
yeah.
And in 15, we had a market similar to this. Now, I think this is more aggressive and higher price point, but we had this aggressive market. And I would put clients in there in the interim for free.
Oh,
Like, that was
yeah, that's
something
nice.
that I could do for them. Um, and now I have a woman living there for free who lost like most of her income during COVID. So I was just like, you
Oh,
live there. Yeah.
yeah,
I feel really lucky that I could do that because I've owned it forever. So
yeah.
I don't really owe that much on it. But that was like a solution that I came up with. So,
Mm,
that might be something. If there are realtors on here who are listening, look
yeah,
into Airbnbs for your clients. If you're a listing agent, and
yeah.
that kind of thing.
We've certainly looked at that, or like tried to help clients get into, a rental. Sometimes our clients are saying, I'm going to go rent, I'm going to sign a year lease because I don't know how long it's going to
They don't
take.
know how long. Mm-hmm.
And you really don't. And you also then don't know what is going to be the seller that you want to buy from. What's their standpoint, So if you think
Yeah.
you close, and let's say it's 2 months till you find the right property, but let's say then your seller goes, I need a 45-day close, and then I need like almost 60-day possession. There, if you think about it, it's like, okay, well, that's 2 months, 3, 4, that's 5 months right there. Plus
Yeah.
then, 1 or 2 months, to move, it's like all of those things kind of come in.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like I tell people, like, you have to be prepared that you're going to have to maybe spend some extra money
Yeah.
to do to do what you want to
It's
do.
intense right now. Like, it's
Yeah.
not, I don't know. I mean, people have a lot of equity in their homes. They don't have to sell. That's what we're seeing, and
Yes.
that's what's become
Yeah.
problematic for buyers. But, we're not seeing this subprime market that we saw in 2008.
Mm.
So it's a
No.
different, like, when people sit here and talk about a housing bubble, I'm like, oh, I'm so
Well, and I think
sorry.
you're going to see those. That's the thing. I think everybody I think it's a little bit of wishful thinking. People were like,
I know.
well, I'm going to wait. We had some feedback from an open house recently. They were like, well, we're going to wait until the prices come down. I'm like,
On a 2.7 on a 30-year fixed,
it's like,
it's
I
not
don't
going
think that's
down.
going to happen. I don't
Mm,
think that's going to be what we see.
mm-mm.
I mean, may we see a time of year where it is less aggressive, where there's maybe where the things have cooled a little bit. Yeah,
Well, people are traveling more again.
but I don't think that's going to change that all of a sudden. It's not like, oh, the 100, the $500,000 house is now 450. Like, it's not. And if you look at our trajectory, at least for us here, that in some neighborhoods we've seen a dip. We saw a dip in some of the downtown places, but that's not. I
It's
don't
going to
foresee.
come back, though. You saw that during COVID. And now what you're going to see are like people buying investment properties. And they're
Yep.
going to be, you know what I mean? They're going to be like, oh, cool. I mean, like, there's some deals, right, in New
Yeah.
York right now, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But I
And
mean,
even
take
that
that
is
grab.
shifting right now.
Yeah.
Like, even that where it was like, oh, I can get a deal. That's
Yeah. No,
not what
it's,
it
yeah.
was.
Just New York always comes back. Yeah, I mean, I
Even that
try to
so
explain that
often.
over and over again to people. I'm like, we are not in a subprime lending
Yeah.
situations at all. Like, you have to deeply understand what happened in 2008 or watch The Big Short if you need the
That's
cliff
all you need,
notes.
right? That's all you need. It tells you everything. But it's true. It's like, we're what we have right now is is a supply demand issue,
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah,
basic, baseline economic.
super basic.
So the solution is we just need more homes for
More
sale.
housing.
And what's funny, it's the same problem we were having in the recession. The whole problem we had right there after everything crashed was then everybody was selling their house. Everybody was like throwing everything like, oh my God, we got to get out. And
Yeah.
I distinctly remember as 2012 began, everything was like, we just need less inventory and it'll right the ship.
And
And
it did it by 15.
it did it for
Here.
us, really did it
Yeah.
by the end of 12. Like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
looking at the end of 2012, looking at the graphs, and you could see the inventory coming down. And then 13 hit, and it was like, we're off to the races. And we really jumped back up, and we saw major gains that year. Now, of course, we were in the toilet. So, like, it was like crawling out to be sitting on the toilet. Like that's
Yeah.
that's what happened in 2013. But
Yeah.
they look back at that year, the change, the sale price change between 12 and 13 was aggressive, but also we had lost like 40% of our value. So if you made up
we
that in
didn't.
a year, that wasn't the end of the world. So.
We during the recession went down to 3 and 4% equity gain. And one quarter we dipped to negative 1.23% loss.
That's crazy.
That's what's crazy. That is what drives this pricing here, right? And this whole sentiment. And it does price people out of it. I mean, what's really cool is we have fingers effing crossed. So we have a really great opportunity zone in Boulder. And in that is a 37-acre blacktop parking lot around a crappy, can I swear on here? Strip mall. Where like okay, because I swear like a sailor. Anyway, so I don't know if I showed you that when I was here, but forever people have been trying to get it, and it's been difficult because there's about 21 owners, right? And so what our concern has been in Boulder, there's definitely NIMBYism, but on the east side of Boulder, it's been pretty industrial. Call it from 28th Street East, right? And so it did like yucky commercial back in the day, and now this has been deemed an opportunity zone.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity for 1,500 units on this 37 acres, and including commercial. And finally, I don't know how this person found everybody, but they found everyone. And they have plans into the city, and that would be huge for Boulder because that's where teachers get to live and service workers and anybody who is not making $150,000 and more a year. You know what I mean? So I'm super excited about that. But that's the stuff that we're facing is like just not having police officers who live in Boulder
because they can't afford it.
That's crazy. And that's problematic. When you don't have a community member who's on your police force, that's problematic, things like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we haven't had, we have a little bit of that problem, but it's more so just where they can live, It's just, we become more of an expensive city,
Yeah.
And low interest rates drive that. I mean, we've seen that in education. I mean, why is the price of
teachers?
Yeah.
So if we had that, like, if people don't fight it, like, I will be so, like, people who live on that west side of town, when we were up at Creta and you could see the mountains and stuff. I mean, $20 million houses, blah, 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 right? They don't even get bothered by 28th Street. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if we can just get it passed and like have it redeveloped, it will be so cool.
Yeah. What's the timeline look like for that?
I mean, that's going to take forever. So it took forever to get a senior living facility. So they bought the property 10 or 12 years ago. They're finally building on it. They'll be done in another 3 years, $300 million project. And it's luxury. Hopefully, just people don't fight it. There's no reason to. There's just no reason to. But they always do here. It's always a thing. So I would say like 3 to 5 years. I mean, we'll see what entitlements take. I mean, that's going to take time in and of itself. So
yeah.
But it would be great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's it'll be interesting to see what the rest of our year brings. I mean, we're kind of wrestling now with like what's going to happen as the summer hits, and people are traveling, like, going to slow down? Are we not? Like, what's going on? So it's going to be an interesting.
You might see some opportunities. I remember before COVID, when people were traveling, our July was really mellow. And I was like, that's the time to buy. That's the time to buy, and then they would get a little bit of deals because if people got antsy kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious to see if that'll change. Last year, it sure didn't. Last year, people were here and they were shuffling around like crazy.
Yeah, we had a slow time last year between August and October. That was a 2.5 months time where everyone was like,
why? I wonder.
I think because it was the impending, like, okay, we're going to have to be inside lockdown again, and there was a lot of that feeling and that rhetoric here,
Yeah.
where people were really, I think, trying to enjoy like the outside time, like they were really focused. And
Gotcha.
it stays nice here usually until about mid-October. So I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone really just having as much outdoor time as possible, because we had outdoor dining, and then you knew like it was going to get cold and then it was going to get shut down. You're going to have to go inside. And so then when we got into late October, early November, it was really busy. And that's what I think it was for us is, oh my God, we have to go back inside. Now, of course, it's like, oh my God, we can go outside. Like, and they're talking about, our mayor came out and said July 4th, we're open. Ravinia announced the schedule. And like, so all of these things are happening. You're like, oh my goodness, we can do stuff again. People are getting vaccinated. Like, so I think the tide is turned now, and it's like, okay, we made it. We're not through, but we're pretty darn close to port,
Yeah.
So
What did you study in college? Did you go to college?
I went, I studied broadcast journalism. So I'm really good at this stuff.
No, that's why I laugh. I'm like, we're
how did you get here? I don't know. It was
yeah.
very circuitous.
I always laugh. I was talking to a woman. There's a woman today that I was speaking with online, and CU, University of Colorado Boulder, has the school called Leeds. It's one of the top business schools in the country, and they have a really amazing real estate school there.
Yeah.
And I've called in the past and been like, I would love to mentor. Like, your students reach out to me all the time. They always want to come work for me, and they're like, oh yeah, when did you graduate? I go, oh no, I dropped out of college. They're like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, but then they can come intern for me. And the woman was saying, she's like, oh yeah, one of my graduates came to work for you, and now she's like way up high. And I was dying. I was like, oh, the irony. So anyway, sorry, I digress.
But it is really funny though. You're like, oh, but they've already been here. You're telling me I can't. Okay, cool.
Right. No problem.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good dovetail. So, well, cool. Well, anything else you're seeing in the market there, or just in general?
We have lots of developers coming from other places. Suddenly I sell commercial. I have a buyer who big commercial, big,
huge.
And it just came, I think that's the thing that's very interesting is when you have these traditional clients, and I have lots of successful entrepreneurial clients, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really cool because he's like our age, and he and his buddy started buying and selling stuff 24 years ago, and now they're like part of a $400 and $500 million fund. And so they've been coming through and buying in the opportunity zone, and and that's cool. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, like I actually have something who knew, but I have something to offer in this space, A, because I know everybody in the area, and then B, because and then the conversation all the time. So that's been cool too, to see. It'll be interesting to see, because again, we're a smaller community. So when you have a lot of buying from outside, you hope that they have a deep understanding of the area as well. And this guy actually does. Like, he's like, I want to make sure that the commercial that's going in is cool. The residents are all going to be the Google folks and the Apple folks anyway, because Apple just, tapped us for being a space where 700 jobs are coming to. So that has just been an interesting thing to see. And you see too, for realtors who, are focused on their work and don't treat it as like a vanity job. There's a group of us who are performing very intensely at the top, and then the others. I think that this is that space where everybody gets into real estate because they see people doing really well. They just don't learn a lot of negotiation tactic. So I always say to new realtors in the space, especially if you have anybody listening, this is kind of, you're going to be doing the fight or flight thing if you've got buyers, but this is the time to do a lot of continuing education, take your negotiation courses, because we do see a shift, then you'll at least be able to have a conversation in that space.
And I think that anybody can. I've said this a lot, and it's funny. I kind of want to do one of these like weeks for realtors, like just like
Yeah.
like bringing everything together, because I actually think it's a really if you're a new realtor right now, I think
Oof.
it's extremely difficult. I cannot imagine like coming in
Or a
a
buyer's agent. A buyer's agent.
buyer's agent, like how and you
Woo.
know, for start, you also work with buyers. So
Yeah.
like how would you even be able to you don't have the chops, you know?
You don't
Like
have the chops and it's exhausting. I mean, I don't take on that many buyers and
yeah.
I'm tired. You
Yeah.
know,
We're all tired right now. But
yeah,
I think it's really I think it's really difficult because too, I think a lot of people, oh, I'm getting into real estate. And I'm like, oh, and I've
I
seen
know.
people get
I
into it
know.
in the
I know.
last year. And some people have done well, and others I've seen just kind of fail because, you know, it's like I think a lot of times too, it's like maybe they're just not getting mentored, you know, and taught the right way, you know, like and they're not taking the right steps, doing the right things that will
Right.
actually set you up for a sustainable business and learning.
Yeah.
And we've seen too with a lot of more junior experienced agents attitude. I mean, the
Yeah.
attitude where, and it's like my favorite story from this year has been, by the way, if you're just tuning in, Jen Egbert, my dear friend and colleague from Boulder, Colorado, we're just talking about the market, what we're seeing, answering some questions. So if you got a question, pop it in the chat and we'll be happy to answer it.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually see that we had something in the private chat. So
Karen, she had to go show a buyer or
oh,
something.
got it. Just telling me that she's leaving. I got it.
Cute.
The what was I mean, now I totally lost my train of thought with that.
Well, so yeah, so I
What was he
think
saying?
that's the thing is like not having that mentorship up front, you
Oh,
know, and I think managing brokers, they're a little bit tired too right now. So it's like the hustle. You're talking about hustle culture, I think is what you were getting at with the
like
younger
that's
agents.
you have to just you got to go.
Yeah.
But knowing how to do it and how to do it in a right in the right way, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it's real interesting to watch the new ones come in. Oh no, and so I know what you're saying. So like the attitude. So I will not forget this. I had an agent that brought an offer on a property, and we wound up getting another offer. So we were in multiples. And the funny part is we had countered that offer first before the second one came in.
Great.
And part of his response to me was very interesting because he's like, you know, I know you're a big listing agent and you probably don't see all the other properties because you're a listing agent, not a buyer's agent. P.S. My business is split 50-50. So I'm like, thanks for not understanding things. But what was funny is he said to me, you know, I do 90% of my business in this neighborhood and blah, 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 you know, just kind of going on. And so what's funny is it's like
Did he tell you you've been in real estate for 25 years?
one of those. So it's funny though, because I like if somebody gives me a statistic and it doesn't sound right to me, I check it. Like if
Yeah.
I checkable. And you know, you can look up in realtor sales. So I was like, I don't remember seeing that person's name on a lot of deals in the neighborhood. So I look it up. It wasn't 90% of his business. It's 4%
Right.
of his business historically. And
Right.
nothing in the last 12 months. And so I just was like, you know, and just like this, there was like this aggression and like, you know,
I mean, I think they're tired. I really do. I think they're tired. And I think when
yeah,
you're in that space, like if you don't do a lot of continuing ed, if you don't have impulse control or know how to like
yeah,
manage your impulse control, I
yeah,
like there is value, so much value in being educated in negotiation, right?
yeah.
And really understanding the personalities and understanding that the realtors are your colleagues, you know? And
And
I
I
will
think
tell
that's
you,
what's been very much lost on the new generation of brokers coming up. And it's
they'll get
funny
there.
because you wonder if they
I
will.
hope. I hope.
Because one of
They're
the things,
connected.
well, one of the things we talked about a lot in last week in Home Buyers Week and this week in Home Sellers Week was if you when someone, you know, if the broker on the other side of the aisle, and this is for home sellers, so the buyer's broker, if it's somebody you know and you know how they work and you know that their buyers close, you're more apt to try and want to, like the seller is going to ask you that question, and that might be the person that you want to work with. And so if you're coming at it as a buyer's agent from a combative position,
Yeah.
you're not setting your buyer up for success. I bite my tongue a lot
Oh,
with
yes.
realtors, and I always have to think back, if I say this, is that going to hurt my client's position? And if the answer is even a maybe, shutting my mouth. There's a lot of times where
You know, I call you and I'm like,
I'm
they're
like,
going to need me. They're going to need me.
Well,
They're gonna need.
I bite my tongue with other brokers a lot because they'll make correct statements, or you just sometimes realize that we're going down this argument path where I know that we're in the right and you think you're in the right, and we're never going to change that. So reshift the conversation. Let's talk about what we can control,
My favorite thing to say in those spaces, especially when, well, two things. When I'm asked a question, I never answer it. I say, I don't know, I'll go check with my client and I'll get back to you. But the other
Yeah.
thing, because when you find yourself getting hooked, right, is I'll be like, you know what? Here's the deal. You nor I are buying this house. Our job is to
Really good point.
advocate for our client. So I need you
Yeah.
to stop yelling at me and go ask your client if they're willing to do this.
Yeah.
And just reset.
A lot. Like, yeah, actually reset. I'm gonna write that down. That's a good word.
Write it down.
I'm writing it down. Is that, like, to your point, and I say that a lot too, but I do hear that a lot from brokers. Well, my client won't do that. Because you've asked them?
Yeah.
Like,
But how do you know?
It's one thing to say, I don't think my client will do that, but let me ask them, or I'm happy to present that. Is that what you'd like to present?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes they've even gone back to sellers and say, is that what you want? Are you sure you want me to present that? Or I'm sorry, I'll go back to a buyer's agent sometimes, or the agent on the other side and say, are you sure you want me to present that? I don't think my client's going to receive that response or that note very well. Happy to present it if you like, but is that...
Or remind them if there's a backup offer, right? Like, they can cancel your contract, like those kind of things. But I think that is a really important with those, when you're having people come at you like that. I don't know. I find I have, it's not the newer ones. It's like the ones who aren't producing as much. I have this one woman, it's her tude, like, and it's so funny. Like, I'm just like, I don't even like her attitude is so, what's the word, edgy. And I'm an edgy person, and I like read her texts and the way she talks down to me, and I'm like, we'll just look at the numbers at the end of the year.
Right.
It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
I don't say anything. But yeah, it's usually from people, the newer ones, not so much if they don't know who you are. Yeah.
The less experienced one, I've had a couple where there's one broker we did a deal with this year, and every communication was always just unnecessarily aggressive. And, just kind of, even sometimes, you could have said that in 2 sentences, not 3 paragraphs, constantly reminding us about your client and their needs and whatever. It's like, I get it. Can we cut? What do you need from us? And I bit my tongue so much on that transaction for my seller because I was like, I'm not going to get into a pissing match where then he gets, because I could tell that broker was at that mindset where then he'd be like, well, I don't think we should work with him. It would become that.
I'll tell you,
in the waters, and we didn't want that. So.
All day long, like, do not try and do that triangulating, with your clients and the other agent. I just never do, because people get so emotional, right? And if they get mad, if they think they're mad at somebody that they really have never had a conversation with, it's on us, right?
Yeah.
So I really try and stay away from that triangulating all day long. And I can hear it coming, and I'm like, oh no, they probably meant that. Let me go check, I feel like we're doing a lot of hand holding on emotions all the time, but it's pretty amplified right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so interesting. Well, we could probably talk all day. Now I want to do like a broker centric one, like a little training. Train everyone the way we think they should be trained.
Well, you met Patrick, right?
Yes.
Like, he and we laugh. So, like, now it's like a whole game. We're like, you better read your whole contract because I wrote something really shitty in there. And he's like, I did it the other day. I mean, really, it's so bad. It's really so unprofessional, but it's like, we're at least having fun, but oh my God, trying to sneak stuff in. He's like, Jen, change it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, we're going to, we are almost at the end of time here. So I'm going to thank you for being delightful as always and sharing your wisdom with us. I know, I miss you too. We didn't have too many watchers today, but this is recording, so people will see it later, I'm sure, and learn from just our musings. So there you go. Well, I'm going to thank you for joining us. I'm going to send you Bye, honey. See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh. Well, y'all, we have reached the end of Home Sellers Week. It was fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Jen Egbert from Mile High Modern, my dear friend in Boulder, Colorado, as we were just kvetching and shooting the breeze about what's going on in the industry and what we're seeing with our clients, and just a great morning of fun. So for those that joined us, thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the likes, all the shares, all the interaction this week. Keep sending your questions. I love answering them. Love hearing from you guys. And we'll do some more things like this year at some point. We'll see. So have a great Saturday. Thanks so much for tuning in this week and to all of our other events. You can always watch these recaps on my YouTube channel, which is YouTube.com/Scott Curcio, or my Facebook business page, which is just Scott Curcio Real Estate. Go ahead and search for that. Like it, love it, comment, share. Please, please, please. We'll see you soon. Have a great week. Bye.